Folks, welcome back to another edition of the Play Action Pod. I'm your host, Christian McCullum. We continue to march on in the month of March, looking to some of the top programs in the country. Today, we're looking at USC with Marc Kulkin from wearesc.com. I'm part of the On3 network. Marc, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right. USC, they've had a pretty good season so far this year. Really good season, really. Coming into the season, what were the expectations coming into the season for the Trojans?
It's a great question. Last year they had the unicorn Evan Mobley, one of the top draft picks in the NBA. I think most people would agree, probably the rookie of the year. And so they didn't really have that marquee superstar for the first time in a few years. I mean, the year before you had Onyeka Okongwu, who was drafted, in the draft in the lottery, I believe, as well. So this year they came in more as a team. Isaiah Mobley, the older brother to Evan, was the marquee player returning. He tested the waters in the NBA during the offseason. It was better for him to come back. So most people can kind of consider this a rebuilding year for USC. And if a rebuilding year leads them to 25-5 heading into their final game of the season, I think people who are familiar with USC basketball, that's a pretty acceptable result considering USC is known for football.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, he said 25-5, only lost to three teams all year. One of them being Arizona. It was a tough loss
Yeah,
last weekend. They got really, but Arizona's, one of the leading title contenders. And you mentioned Mobley. He's kind of been the leader, like you said, but it's been also like a balanced attack. What have they been
correct.
able to do to kind of sustain this success and consistency throughout the season?
Well, yeah, like I said, because they really don't have that superstar player, so to speak, they have to focus and play more as a team. But one of the things is they had a lot of experience returning. So even though you lose an Evan, you still have Isaiah, you still have a Drew Peterson, you still have an Ethan Anderson, Chavez Goodwin. I mean, this team went to the Elite Eight last year, and so they're not blowing anybody out. They're winning games by playing as a team. And it starts with the defense. So they played a lot of close games this year, and I believe they're 9-2 in games decided by 5 points or less. And that's a direct result of playing together as a team with experience, and going deep into the NCAA tournament last year.
All right, and you guys will wrap up the regular season here against UCLA, team that USC has dominated here in recent memory, and then move
Yeah.
on to the conference tournament. What will you want to see? What will be some key indicators from you down this stretch heading into the tournament that this team looks like it's kind of hitting its stride when it matters most?
Yeah, well, the first thing we want to see is to see how they bounce back from Tuesday's performance. There was you don't want to put too much into one game. As you mentioned, they've lost to three teams this year, but there was so much emphasis put on this last game. It was a sellout. Getting the crowd, the whiteout, and again, it's okay to lose, but the way they lost is going to really see if where this team is as far as can they shake it off, go into that rivalry game, and bounce back and beat a team that they actually beat early in the season without Isaiah Mobley. So I think that's what we're looking for heading into the Pac-12 tournament.
And heading into the NCAA tournament, I mean, in the conference, it's amazing that the USC's been able to, handle just about everybody except for Arizona, Oregon, and Stanford. Especially since all these teams know each other so well. Heading into the tournament, what will be like kind of a generic matchup that could give them problems in the first weekend, maybe knock them off, or what would be a favorable matchup for them maybe the second weekend that might allow them to, go further than people expect?
Yeah. So the teams that have beat USC this year have length. Arizona, Stanford, and Oregon. USC did get Oregon back last week up in Eugene, so I just want to kind of balance the scales there on who's giving them trouble.
Mm-hmm.
But what gives this team trouble is USC is, I believe, one of the top three teams as far as length in the country. Arizona and Stanford, I believe, are the other two. So that's what causes problems for USC when they're not shooting well from the outside. And that's really been their biggest Achilles heel all year, is having a consistent game from the outside, making that 3-point shot. Because, they usually bring their defense every game. That's who they are. But if the offense isn't working, they tend to get frustrated sometimes because they try and go inside a lot. And if the outside shot isn't falling and you have a team like in Arizona or Stanford who has length, it will cause problems for them.
Okay, but like you said, there's only a couple teams out there that can even match USC's
Right,
length. So
right.
if they kind of dodge those teams, which is not unheard of, considering they'll probably want to keep conference foes away from each other. What do you think this team's ceiling is in the month of March?
Like I said at the beginning, they play very well in tight contested games. Um, People look at their free throw shooting percentage as a team, and yeah, it's not good. But over the last 10 games, 11, 12 games, they're shooting north of 75%. So that's not going to be an issue as long as they stay on that trend. Um, I guess this team can go as far as their outside shooting and their guard play can take them. You and I both will agree. Come tournament time, guard play is essential
100%.
because every possession matters.
Yep.
Um, and again, that's kind of where USC has been a little inconsistent. You've heard of Drew Peterson.
Yep.
The guy's streaky. Boogie Ellis, another really streaky guy. But when their shots aren't falling, they got to find ways to get their team involved to kind of fill in when they can't get that offense.
Okay, that sounds good. Marc, we really appreciate it. Thanks for joining us. Like I said, wearesc.com on 3Sports. That's the place to get all your USC coverage. And we'll be following you guys here throughout the month to see all your Trojan basketball coverage.
All right, we'll look forward to it. Thanks again.
Thank you.